So section 2.2 is called logic. Now, let's review what we talked about last time. This is what we talked about last time. We talked about making conjectures, okay, and then making counterexamples if conjectures are false, if I give you a conjecture. So looking at this figure, looking at this description, it says make a conjecture based on the given information and draw a figure to illustrate your conjecture. So all I tell you is that ABCD is a square. So if you draw that figure, you know it's going to be A, B, C, D. It doesn't matter where the coordinates are. Okay? And since it's a square, all four of the sides are the same, and there are four right angles, right? So I want to make a conjecture about this figure. There's a lot of different things. Remember, a conjecture is just basically a true statement about a situation that's always true. So what could be a conjecture I could make based on this figure? There's a lot of different ones. What's something that's true based on this figure that would always be true? Yeah, all sides are equal. You could say all sides are congruent. That's a conjecture, right? You could either write that out, or you could be specific and say, you know, segment AB is congruent to segment BC, congruent to segment CD, congruent to segment AD, right? Those are both conjectures. Those would both be good ones. What would be another conjecture we could make based on this figure? Yeah, four right angles. All right angles. Or you could go through and label the angles too, right? Those are conjectures. Here's the first few vocab terms you need to know from section 2.2, which is logic, okay? So these would be ones that would show up on the front page of the chapter 2 test. First, we have a statement. Okay? A statement is just any sentence that's either true or false, right? If you make a statement, it's either a true statement or it's a false statement. The sky is blue is a statement, right? It's true most of the time. The truth value of a statement, that's either the truth or falsity of a statement, meaning is the statement true or false? So I'm going to give you a statement and tell you, give me the truth value of this statement. That's just asking, is it true or is it false? Okay. And then a compound statement, just like in English, you know, you talk about compound sentences. A compound statement is just two or more statements that are joined together. And we have two different types of compound statements we'll talk about in just a second. Next, we have something called a negation. All you need to know about a negation is what the symbol looks like. And I'll write it a little bigger here. But a negation symbol is that little squiggly or that little tilde in front of a letter. So it says the negation of a statement is not read not P. So for example, if I said statement P is the sky is blue. That's a statement, right? And I call it statement P just to abbreviate it. P stands for this statement. If I wrote the negation of P, this symbol negation, okay, that means not. So the negation of P would read the sky is not blue. Okay? That's what this symbol means. It means not. Okay, we call it a negation. So if statement P was the sky is blue, not P would be the sky is not blue. The not. So you will see these symbols a lot. It means to negate that statement. Do the opposite. If I would have said in the statement above, if I would have said the sky is not blue, right? The negation would be the sky is blue. Okay, it's just doing the opposite of whatever that statement is. Okay, that's what we call a negation with that tilde sign in front. Our first compound statement, which this is the second to last vocab term you need to know, is called a conjunction. Okay, a conjunction. It's a compound statement that joins two or more statements in the word and. So a compound statement deals with the word and there's a symbol we have for that. It's this symbol. It's like an upside down V. This is called a conjunction, and this stands for the word and. Okay? So for example, if I gave you two statements and I said statement P is the sky is blue, and statement Q was dogs have four legs. If I said read this to me, okay, this would say the sky is blue and dogs have four legs. That's what this symbol means. It's called a conjunction, and it means and. A conjunction joins two words with the word and. Okay, it's very important that you know what this symbol is and you know what a conjunction means and, because then there's something else that means or there's a different type of compound statement. Let's look at this. It says use the following statements to write a compound statement for the conjunction P and Q, then find its truth value. So I need to write the statement first, and it tells me it's a conjunction, and it wants the conjunction of P and Q. So statement P says 1 foot is 14 inches. Statement Q says September has 30 days. So if I want to write that out, first of all, I would say 1 foot is 14 inches, and, I know I used the word and because it was a conjunction, and September has 30 days. So that's writing the compound statement. Then it tells me, find its truth value. Is this statement itself true or false? Now, since I used the word and, both of these statements have to be true for the whole thing to be true, right? This has to be true and this has to be true in order for the whole thing to be true. If one of them is false, the whole thing's false because I used the word and, right? So let's just take the statement separately. Is statement P by itself true or false? It's obviously false, right? 1 foot has, that statement itself is false. Statement Q, September has 30 days, that is true. Okay? So when I have the conjunction of these two statements, 1 foot is 14 inches and September has 30 days, would that conjunction be true or false? It would be false because both of them are not true, right? That one's false. Even though that one's true, I said and, right? And means both of them have to be true in order for the whole thing to be true. Okay? So the truth value of this statement would be as false because both of them are not true. But now it tells me, write the compound statement for this conjunction, and I'll write it bigger. Okay, I have to write the statement for this. Okay. So what would this the negation of P would look like what?
1 foot is not.
Yeah, it'd be 1 foot is not 14 inches, right? So I would say 1 foot is not 14 inches. And this symbol stands for the word and, right? And statement R says a plane is defined by 3 non-collinear points. So the negation of P itself, this part is true, and statement R is true, right? They're both true. 1 foot is not 14 inches, and a plane is defined by 3 points not on the same plane or not on the same line, right? So the truth value of this whole statement would be true because both of these are true. So this statement, not P and R, where we read that as not P, or the negation of P and R, would be true because both statements are true. But think about this one. I want you to find what would this compound statement be and what would the truth value of this statement be? Would it be true or false? What do we think? What would the truth value of that statement be? True or false? It'd be false, right? Because it's read, June is the 6th month of the year, and a turtle is a bird, right? Well, that statement itself is true, but that statement itself is, of course, false. So since I used the word and, the whole thing would be false because it's a conjunction. I used the word and. Both of them have to be true for the whole thing to be true. How about this one? Again, I'm looking at this now. Yeah, so I'm looking at this statement here. So if you read this out loud as the compound statement, it would be not Q and not R. So it'd be a square does not have 5 sides and a turtle is not a bird. So would that be true or false? It'd be true because both of those statements are true, right? A square does not have 5 sides and a turtle is not a bird. So those are true statements. Okay? Very good. The last thing we want to talk about vocab-wise is what we call a disjunction. We talked about a conjunction means the word and. A disjunction is a compound statement that joins 2 or more statements in the word or. In the word or. So the symbol for that, again I'll write it a little bit bigger here, is basically a big capital V looking thing. This means or. So you're going to have to know the difference that the one pointing upwards is a conjunction, it means and the one pointing downwards is a disjunction, and means or. Now the difference between and or is when you say the word or, only one of them has to be true for the whole thing to be true, right? When you say the word and, both of them have to be true. Okay. So if you see this, that's a disjunction, which means or. Write a compound statement for the disjunction P or Q. Sometimes it tells you the word or. Most of the time it's going to use the symbol though. So if I had to write this statement out, it would say AB is proper notation for line AB, or centimeters are metric units. I want to know what's the truth value of that disjunction. Is that disjunction true or is it false? Yes, it is true, right? Now, these statements separately, statement P by itself is false, right? Because this isn't the proper notation for line AB. This would be what? Line segment, right? Line AB would have the arrows on both ends. And then statement Q by itself, centimeters are metric units, that's true, right? Because inches are standard units, centimeters are metric units. So since I use the word or though, only one of them has to be true for the truth value of the whole thing to be true, because it's either this or that, right? If one of them is true, the whole thing's true. If this was a conjunction, if this was the word and, it would have been false though. Because when you say and, both of them have to be true. Looking at this statement, I want to know what's its truth value. Would this be true or false? I'd say true, right? Because it says centimeters are metric units or 9 is a prime number. Now, yeah, 9's not prime, right, because it's divisible by 3. That statement itself is false, but again, statement Q is true. And since I used a disjunction, since I used the word or, only one of them have to be true for the whole thing to be true. So the truth value of that compound statement is true. Give you a second to look over this one. You write the compound statement, then find its truth value, and I'm looking right here. If you wrote out the compound statement, it would read, a cow does not have 12 legs, or a triangle does not have 3 sides. This statement itself would be true. This statement would be false, because a triangle does have 3 sides, right? But since I used the word or, only one of them has to be true. So the truth value of that disjunction is true. Now, conjunction and disjunctions are most often you see them in Venn diagrams, right? Like this 9 represents what? This is people in a dance class. This 9 stands for what? Yeah, it stands for the conjunction of tap, jazz, and ballet, right? These 9 people did all 3. They did tap, jazz, and ballet. Okay? These people only did tap. These people did tap and jazz, but not ballet, right? We know how to read Venn diagrams. So looking at Venn diagrams, how many students are enrolled in all 3? We said that's 9, right? That's the conjunction of tap, jazz, and ballet. Okay. How many students are enrolled in tap or ballet? Now here's a disjunction. So if you had all of these, I just want to know how many of these kids are doing one or the other of tap and ballet. So how would you find that number? I just want one or the other, tap or ballet. Now, so are these kids doing tap or ballet? Of course, they're just doing tap, right? Are these kids doing tap or ballet? Yeah, they're doing tap, right? Are these kids doing tap or ballet? Yeah, they're doing all 3. What about these ones? Yeah, because they're doing both. These ones? Yeah, they're doing ballet. These ones? So the only ones not doing tap or ballet here are these guys, all right? So if I wanted to find the disjunction of tap or ballet, I would just add up all these numbers. These would be the people that are doing one or the other. Okay? The opposite, if you saw a number like on the outside like this, what would that 50 stand for there if you saw a number on the outside? 50 would be like people who aren't doing any of those. Okay? If it was on the outside. Okay? So those people would not count in this scenario if that number was there. Good. Okay, so you'd add up all those, you get 121. Another Venn diagram, dogs, cats, and birds as pets. So if I ask you questions based on that, how many of these have one of the 3 types of pets? What would you do to find this answer? When I said one of the 3 types, dogs or cats or birds. Yeah, you would add everything, right? Because all of these people shown have dogs or cats or birds. I just asked for one of the 3 types. So if I ask the disjunction of all three, they would all be there. How many students have dogs or cats? How would you find this answer? Add everything but the birds, right? Because all of these people at least have dogs or cats. These are the only people that don't have one or the other. Okay. Good, you'd add all those up, you get 280. How many have dogs, cats, and birds? So I have a conjunction of all three. 10, right? Because that's these people. That's the conjunction of all three. Those 10 people have cats, dogs, and birds. Yeah. Very good. So this says constructed truth table for not P. What does this statement stand for? Or Q. Okay. What a truth table is it's a table that shows you every possible scenario that could happen. Okay. I want to give a table that covers every possible scenario that could happen between these two statements without even knowing what the statements are. Okay. So when you start a truth table, you always want to start with just the statements P and Q. You want to list every possible scenario that those could be. Like, for example, they could both be true, right? Both statements could be true. What could be another scenario that could happen? There's 4 different ones. They could both be false. What's the other one? They could be false and true, or the last one? They could be true and false, right? That's the only possible scenario that could happen between these 4 statements. Or, sorry, between these 2 statements, there's those 4 situations, right? So, since my table wants not P, I'm going to make a column of not P here. And what I'm going to do is compare not P with P. If P is true, not P would be what? It'd have to be false, right? Because if P was true, if I said the sky is blue and that's true, then if I said the sky is not blue, that would have to be false, right? You can't have a statement be true and the negation be true, right? If it was true, it had to be false. So then if P was false here, not P would be true. Here P was false, so not P would be true. And here P was true, so not P would be false. Okay, good. So I have that filled out. Now I have a column for not P, which is what it wants, and I have a column for Q. So now I want to write what it wants here. It wants not P or Q. And I want to write the possible scenarios that could happen here. So I'm looking at these 2 columns now because I'm looking at not P or Q. And since I use the word or, only one of them has to be true for this disjunction to be true. Right? So if I'm looking at these true statements and Q was true and not P was false, what would the disjunction be? It would be true, right? Because only one of them has to be true. What about this scenario? If Q was false and not P was true? It would have to be true because one of them is true. If they're both true, the disjunction is obviously true, right? And if they're both false, the disjunction is false, right? So this is a truth table for this situation. I've covered every possible scenario that could happen between these 2 statements without even knowing what the statements are. I want to write a truth table for this scenario. How would that be read out loud?
Not Q and not.
Exactly. That's not Q and not P, right? You always start the truth table with just the statements P and Q. I'll put Q first since I listed it first, but it doesn't matter. Okay. I just want to start with the normal statements Q and P, and I just want to list every possible scenario. The order of this doesn't matter. Your truth table might be different than the truth table of the person sitting next to you, but you can still both have them right. Because I always start with true, true, but you can start with false, false, or you can start with true, false, whatever you want. Okay? So let's say, I'm going to say they're either both true, they're either both false, the first is true and the second is false, or the first is false and the second is true. Right? That's all the possible scenarios it could be. The order of this doesn't matter as long as you cover all the scenarios. Okay? So now, I want to write a compound statement, a conjunction. I want to write not Q and not P. So I need to make a column for both of those. I need to make a column for not Q, and I need to make a column for not P. And then my last column, since I'll have both of those done, will be not Q and not P. Okay? So let's go through each of these separately now. If I'm looking at not Q here, what would go here? False, right? Because Q is true, so right here would be false. What would go here? True, because Q was true, or sorry, Q was false, so that'd be true. What about here? False, and obviously true, right? Because I'm just looking, basically the negation is just the opposite, right? Now let's do not P. What would go here? False, because P was true. Here. True, because P was false. True, because P was false. False, because P was true. Now let's look at my conjunction. This is the word and. So again, I'm just looking at these two columns now because I want not Q and not P. If they're both false, the conjunction then is obviously false. If they're both true, the conjunction is true. What about if one is false and one is true? What's the conjunction? False because it's the word and, right? If this was or, it would have been true, but this is the word and. They both have to be true. So the last one again would be false because they're not both true. So this would be a truth table for that situation. Covers every scenario that could happen. But you obviously could, right? If you went through and filled out every scenario, let's look at this one. Here you had 3 statements, P, Q, and R. So you had a lot more combinations, right? They could have all been true. The first and the third could have been true. The first and the second could have been true. The first could have been true, right? These are all the situations for 3 of them. Then they went through the conjunction. This is and. So they said P and R, both true. So that one's true. They went through all those. Then they said P and R. This was P and Q. This was P and R. This means, so this is getting really complicated, right? This means P and Q or P and R. So you're looking at these statements individually. So I'm looking at this column and this column. So if we wanted to go through and fill this out, this says P and Q, which is true, or P and R, which is true. So what would go here? True, because they're both true, right? What about the next one? They're both false, so obviously that would be false. What about here? P and Q is true, but P and R is false. What would go here? It'd be true because it's the word or here, right? And you could go through and finish those each separately. It would take a lot longer, but it can be done, right? You can cover every scenario there.